Is Trump losing the war against Iran? Good evening. This is Victor Hale. Tonight, I want to take the time to properly analyze what is happening right now on the world stage. Because what we are witnessing is not just a military conflict between the United States and Iran. It is something far more complex, a geopolitical earthquake that is reshaping alliances, destabilizing energy markets, fracturing NATO, and above all, revealing the limits of American power. Tonight, we are going to cover 4 major themes. First, is Trump actually losing this war? And why? Second, how is Iran managing to resist? And for how long? Third, how is NATO fracturing in real time? And fourth, how are the Gulf monarchies quietly repositioning themselves away from Washington? Let's begin. Chapter 1. Trump is losing control. Let's start with the most uncomfortable question. Is Donald Trump losing this war? Not militarily, at least not yet. But strategically, the answer is becoming increasingly clear. When Trump launched strikes against Iran, his objectives were precise and ambitious: seize control of Iran's nuclear program, trigger a popular uprising to bring down the regime, and install a government aligned with American and Israeli interests. None of these objectives have been achieved. None. And the longer this conflict drags on, the more apparent that failure becomes. What makes this particularly painful for Trump is what the Pakistani Prime Minister pointed out publicly. Before this war, the Strait of Hormuz was open to navigation. Trump started a war, and now that same war's primary objective has become reopening a strait that was free before the conflict even began. Think about that for a moment. He created the problem he is now trying to solve. And this is why we are seeing such erratic behavior from Washington. One day, Trump speaks of diplomacy and negotiations. The next, he threatens to destroy Iran's oil terminals, its water desalination plants, its power stations. The day after that, he suggests he could end the conflict, even without reopening Hormuz, and tells other nations to handle it themselves. This is not strategy. This is frustration. The frustration of a man who realizes, perhaps for the first time, that he has been drawn into a conflict whose consequences he badly miscalculated. Chapter 2. Iran is holding. Now let's talk about Iran, because while Washington stumbles, Tehran is holding firm. And the reason goes back more than 20 years. In 2003, when George W. Bush declared Iran part of the so-called axis of evil, Tehran understood something clearly. War with America was no longer a possibility. It was an inevitability. And so Iran spent the next 2 decades preparing, deep inside its mountain ranges, buried under tons of rock. Iran constructed missile production facilities, weapons storage sites, and military infrastructure that conventional airstrikes simply cannot reach. Today, despite weeks of American and Israeli strikes, Iran's missile capabilities remain largely intact. Iran continues to strike targets across 11 countries. Its foreign minister has stated publicly that Iran can sustain this war for 6 months. And the regime has begun opening recruitment offices across the country, mobilizing the population, including children as young as 12. In a strategy reminiscent of the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, this is a regime fighting for its survival. And history shows that regimes fighting for survival are extraordinarily difficult to defeat from the air alone. Trump's advisors are reportedly obsessed with Kharg Island, the terminal through which 80% of Iranian oil flows. Destroying it, they believe, could bring Iran to its knees. But even that calculation is questionable, because Iran has already signaled it is prepared to absorb that blow and keep fighting. Chapter 3. NATO is fracturing. While the battle rages in the Middle East, something equally significant is happening in Europe. NATO, the cornerstone of Western military alliance, for 70 years, is fracturing, and it is fracturing loudly. Spain was the first to act. Pedro Sanchez banned American military aircraft from Spanish airspace entirely, including refueling planes. Then came Italy, which condemned the war outright. Switzerland, historically neutral, found itself in a diplomatic dispute with Washington. France refused to allow military equipment, destined for Israel, to cross its airspace. And perhaps most strikingly, Poland, one of America's most loyal European allies, refused to lend its Patriot missile batteries for use in the Middle East conflict, the same Poland that once considered naming an American military base fought Trump. Today, Poland says no. And Trump's response? Rage. He and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have turned their fury toward NATO itself, accusing European allies of ingratitude, reminding them that America liberated Europe, that America defended them against Russia. But here is the fundamental problem with that argument. NATO was never designed to support American wars, launched unilaterally, without a UN mandate, and without even informing allies in advance. France's Emmanuel Macron learned about the strikes from the news, like everyone else. Saudi Arabia, a country directly affected, was not consulted either. This is not an alliance. This is a command structure that has stopped working, and the consequences could be historic, because some analysts now believe that one outcome of this crisis could be the United States withdrawing from NATO altogether. Chapter 4. The Gulf is repositioning. And then there is the Gulf monarchies, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, have spent decades and billions of dollars outsourcing their security to the United States. The logic was simple. Pay America. America protects you. You avoid having a powerful domestic military that could one day stage a coup. It was a transaction, and for decades it worked. But this war has exposed the fatal flaw. In that transaction, the United States and Israel launched a war that directly threatens the Gulf, without consulting a single Gulf leader. Iran has already struck a water reservoir in Kuwait. Iran has threatened to target desalination plants, infrastructure that provides 99% of drinking water in Bahrain and Kuwait, and the port of Yanbu on Saudi Arabia's Red Sea coast, through which 80% of Saudi oil is exported, is within range of Iranian ballistic missiles and drones. The Gulf monarchies are now asking a question they never expected to ask. Are the Americans actually protecting us? Or have they made us a target? And the answer is driving a quiet but historic realignment. Saudi Arabia is looking toward Turkey, toward Egypt, toward Pakistan. Pakistan, a nuclear power, is already emerging as a key mediator in this conflict. Any future negotiations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz are likely to run through Islamabad and Beijing, not Washington. The world is reorganizing itself, and America may not be at the center of what comes next. Conclusion. So let me bring this back to where we started. Is Trump losing the war? Militarily, it is too early to say. But strategically, the answer is yes. He launched a conflict whose objectives have not been met. He created a crisis that threatens the very energy, arteries of the global economy. He fractured the alliance system that America spent 70 years building. And he pushed the Gulf monarchies, America's closest Arab partners, toward new alliances, the Strait of Hormuz, Bab el-Mandeb, Kharg Island, Yanbu. These are not just geographical names, they are the pressure points of the global economy. And right now, they are all under threat. The real question, as I said at the beginning, is no longer who wins this war. It is whether anyone is still in control of where it is going. This is Victor Hale. If this kind of analysis matters to you, subscribe, share this video, and join me next time, because the story is far from over.